Qlik Dork back again, coming live at you today from my Qlik Dork Data Cathedral Studios here in bright and sunny, I mean gray and cloudy and really cold today, Gainesville, Georgia. My guest today is Robert Schoenfeld, and I've titled this episode, Robert's Got Me in Stitches. And that title was one that, I always like to have fun and interesting titles. But Robert is actually a solution engineer, and he comes to Qlik via Stitch, hence Stitches. And Robert is a solution engineer. And if you want to reach out to Rob at any point, because I know y'all are multitaskers out there, feel free to reach out to LinkedIn and find Rob there. If you've got any follow-up questions, feel free to email Robert here at robertschoenfeld@qlik.com. So, Robert, tell me, what was your path that you ended up at Stitch?
It's actually kind of an interesting path. I originally was working in support, helping, companies with their retail software. So
Okay.
think like supply chain allocations, things along those lines. And about 2.5 years ago, a recruiter reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing sales or pre-sales work,
Okay.
solution demoing talent software?" And ultimately, I got set up with Stitch, actually kind of being the interesting story being the fact that it's really easy to support that right off the bat. So my manager at that time said, "Hey, while you're onboarding with talent, you're going to become the Stitch expert as well." So I just kind of started supporting that, ran with it, and here I am,
Nice.
the Qlik talent Stitch expert.
Nice. So that profile picture I got here of you, is that like a smile because something good was going on, or was that a day like you were going insane taking support calls and sometimes customers can drive you nuts?
Actually, my son wanted to play around with photography, so this was one of those experiments.
Nice. Well, that's a great profile shot. You look like a really fun guy. I know this is going to be an interesting conversation. And having worked in, support, I'm imagining you could understand my background was in IT. And I wrote software, documented it, did the training on it, had to handle support on it. So I've been through the whole gambit. And one of the big problems here, Robert, I'm an old guy. I mean, I know I look 20 and I'm right out of school. I'm actually approaching 60. But I started at a time when an organization, and I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, AT&T, the gambit, right? When we got a new software package and we needed to move our cargo, I mean our data, from the one new source of data that we would get once every couple of years to another target, we would build a track, I mean a program, and we called those integrations. And if it took us 3, 4, 5 months of planning and working, it was no big deal because this was happening every couple of years, right? Well, unfortunately, I am way too old to work in that field anymore because, dude, organizations these days seem to be adding hundreds of data sources, and that could be annually, not like total that they ever need. These things are coming up, happening all the time. And I'm hoping, dude, if I was calling you right now with this problem, what would you be able to tell me that Stitch does to help with this kind of a scenario?
That's actually a great segue. So Stitch really is a solution for this type of use case, meaning you're let's say you're migrating to the cloud. You might have a few databases on-prem, or you're completely reliant on the cloud for most of your data sources. Well, you've got to get that data, those analytics, that information somewhere, right? And most of our customers, or most of the people who would look at Stitch, they don't want to do this in a complicated way. They don't want to have to build out a pipeline or an integration like you put it. They want to just be able to basically go in, get their data, and then start using it in an analytical or some other fashion. Maybe they need to do a lift and shift, or maybe they're doing replication because of a system migration. And this really is a great use case for Stitch.
And so you mentioned specifically on-premise data sources. The organizations that I see now, they're like, oh, I've got these SaaS-based applications and there's data in them, and I need that data moved to my organizational cloud for data for the analytics to consume. What about those things, man? That's where it's hard, right? I don't have source code.
Yep. Absolutely. That's where Stitch excels really well. We have currently 140 sources that you can leverage, a lot of them being cloud-based, very popular use cases being like CRM. So think of the Salesforces, the NetSuites of the world, web analytics like Google Analytics, Facebook ads, Bing ads, things like that. Those are use cases where you might not necessarily be a technical person, or you might not have the resources to, or even the time to want to build out said source or integration. You just need to get your data, and you need to get it right now.
That seems really complicated, man. I mean, this thing, it must take weeks to configure. Is there any way we could stay on a call and have you show me this stuff over like the course of a week on how to build this?
We can do it in under 3 minutes.
Stop it. No, you better share your screen. Do you make a promise like that? Where's my watch? I don't even wear a watch. I never wear any kind of jewelry. But I've got my phone on. I'm going to set a timer.
Okay.
You go ahead and share your screen. I'm going to start timing, Jack.
Share my screen. Sure we're on the right one. There we go. Perfect. So this is the login screen for Stitch. Stitch is a SaaS-based application that can do data movement for you behind the scenes. So you just need to have the credentials to be able to sign up to a solution or source, and apply those, whether it be a login or redirect or a key, add those to the source, and then within minutes you can be set up. So I'm going to use Google Analytics. That's a very popular use case for Stitch.
So you had that many different connectors already for different Google solutions.
Correct.
Holy smoly. Okay. And you're just giving it a name now.
Yep, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to click on Add Integration. I'm just going to call it J4. I'm going to leave these all default for now, except the destination. I just want to select a destination just so we can show how easy it is to replicate.
So this is going to go to Postgres.
Yep, it's going to go to Postgres. Exactly.
Okay.
Click on Authorize. Now from here, I'm just going to click on my Google account that has the dummy data that we want to migrate, or the mock data that we've been creating in Google Analytics.
Okay.
So I'm going to click on my name. I'm going to click on Authorize. It's then going to go out and look at all the Google Analytic profiles that this account has availability to. In this case, I'm going to select the spicy sauce, because the whole premise is we have a spicy sauce company where people want to go to get, their hot sauce, spicy foods, things like that. But we also need to get the web
hot sauce, dude. People love hot sauce.
They really do. So I'm going to click on Continue. Right now, what Stitch is doing is it's connecting to the source via API, and it's getting all the metadata, meaning all the table objects, to show what it has access to. This can
when did you build the API stuff? You said it's connecting via the API. When did you build that? I didn't even see it.
You don't have to. That's the cool part about it. It's doing this all behind the scenes for you.
So Stitch is really like 150 hand-built integrations that just take the parameters. Somebody else has already gone in and done all the legwork.
Exactly. And we're always enhancing and adding new sources.
Okay.
And we really try to drive that by customer demand to make sure that we're, covering the latest and greatest.
So if I found a Mountain Dew software storage, I could load hot sauce data and Mountain Dew data.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And you can also scale. So let's just say Google Analytics is your first solution. Maybe you want to get into Shopify. Maybe you want to get into, like I said, Facebook ads. Those sources will be there and scale as you need them.
So this is kind of cool. But so hang on. I'll stop my time. I'll pause my timer. Yep. You pointed to Google Analytics, not just like a Google BigQuery with traditional tables. You're actually pointing at analytics reports that have been built in Google Analytics.
Absolutely. And you can even specify the standard default ones or create your own custom and add those as you need.
Fantastic. Okay. And now you've got a list here. I'm going to start my timer again.
Sure.
You've got a list here of all these different reports.
Yep.
And I'm guessing you're just going to check the boxes for the ones you want to bring across.
Yep. I'm just going to select a couple tech underscore because they tend to have data populated. This
Okay.
is the table structure. These are all the table field objects that are available to you. By default, they're all selected, but you can uncheck some if you'd like to. Then I can click back
And
to
this
the
is
source.
interesting. Click that one again. That was interesting. You're showing here, like I would, if I was working with a traditional database back in the old days, right? I'm thinking tables, columns of, it's a text, it's numeric. It's actually showing what's a dimension or a metric.
Exactly.
Very, very cool. I mean, that really is pretty nimble. I like that.
Let me go ahead and click on another one just to showcase like OS version. So this is a different table.
Okay.
You have different fields. You can select what you want. There are some different replication methods depending on needs. So for example, if you have a cloud-based database you want to replicate from, we can also scan the transaction log of said database. So do log-based replication in as well as other replication methods like key-based. So you've got a couple different options depending on what you want to do, how you want to replicate the data. So there is flexibility.
So I may replicate it once. I do a full load.
Yep.
What you're saying is that if I choose a source that could be change data capture, CDC, whatever flavor of data integration pipeline you're seeing as somebody who's watching this video, you've got that covered.
We've got that covered. Now it's not real time like that, sub-second, really expensive industrial grade CDC. But if you need data within or anything within an SLA of 30 minutes or over, because that's generally the average latency time, this is a great option to be able to move data. And this is going to include databases as far as replication. This is also going to include any of those SaaS applications. So you'll have constantly replicated data.
It's near real time, which for many SaaS type applications, that's probably an acceptable thing, right?
Absolutely.
It's not changing all that often.
No, again, you can get a little creative if you have transaction heavy data that you need to more often.
And what would be the shortest time you can set that batch cycle for that change data capture information?
So I usually recommend staying with about 30 minutes. The minimum amount of time is going to depend on the source. Most of them can go down to 5 minutes, if not even to 1 minute, if it's specifically a data.
Cool.
So start at that 30 minutes, see how your sync cycles work, and then scale it down if you have the availability, because it really makes, again, you're paying for that anyway.
Right.
So what I've done here is I selected those two tables. I'm going to click on all done. And there's going to be a newly created GA4 to Postgres database.
Okay.
And now it's active. You can see it's already starting to pull rows. So let me tell you, Stitch is a consumption-based solution, meaning it bills you based on the row update, insert, or delete.
Okay.
So you can definitely scale your row usage depending on how much data you want to move on a monthly basis.
And is there a consistent billing, whether it's an insert or an update or deletion? It's the same type of charges, or is the consumption different based on the type?
It'll generally be the same based on type. So if it's one of those, it will bill you. That said, there's a couple nice things we do give you. So there's a 14-day trial that you can use to vet Stitch, make sure it works for your solution. And let's say you want to convert that, or you want to move ahead with Stitch at that point. You can actually convert that to a paid account and not lose any of that work that you'd already put into play.
So you'd be able to start in it. You'd be able to start doing these integration projects for free for 14 days, but they would have to point to their own apps.
Yes, absolutely.
Create their own connection, but then they're good to go. If they build things and say, holy smokes, this stuff works as good as it looked on the Dorkcast, they would be able to then sign up or convert that.
Yeah, so they've got a couple options depending on the needs. They can go to the website directly and set the we call pay-as-you-go account, meaning you can come into the website. Let me show you quickly. Go to pricing, and you can start the pay-as-you-go and either bill it on a monthly or annual cycle, depending on need. And then the plans start as low as $100, depending on how many rows you need to move a month. And then you can scale it that way all the way up to 300 million rows.
So I can do 300 million rows.
Yep.
Okay.
Or if you need more advanced options, let's say you might need post web hooks, or you might need some sort of more advanced scheduling option. Maybe you need more than one destination. You're moving data to Snowflake or another sort of data warehouse.
Uh-huh.
We do support currently up to 9 database and data warehouse solutions. If I click on that, I can show you. So these are the supported solutions right now that we have
Okay.
available.
So 11 different targets of where you could.
Yep, sources or targets, correct.
Okay. And you said there's 140 different types of data sources, so they could get in there, find out whether theirs are there.
Yep, they can come over to sources itself, and then they can just start typing what they'd like. Again, like Shopify, for example.
So they don't have to scroll with their old eyes like mine and try to find them among the list.
No, they can just start typing. Yep.
Nice.
We want to make it as convenient as possible for you to find your source.
2 questions for you, man. First, I'm going to get to security. I'm doing this trial. I have to give you my connection information. How is that information stored?
It's stored encrypted in 2 AWS regions.
Okay. And if I were to try it and then I discontinue it, does that stuff all get wiped out so I don't have to worry about it?
Short answer, yes, you can have it all wiped out.
Okay, cool.
And
the second thing there, Mr. Techie support guy, you mentioned a post webhook. What's a post webhook, man? That sounds really fancy schmancy.
So a post webhook is the ability to send, after a table sync is completed, a payload or a JSON payload to an endpoint that's listening for it, being able to take out elements within that JSON, like the table sync, how many records got updated, things like that. So you can use that for a downstream processing. So let's say, again, Stitch is only an extract and load solution. It can't do transformations. So you're probably going to want to do a little bit of transformation depending on what you need once the data lands. This is a great way to be able to send data via an endpoint to a solution that's listening for it to do your your downstream processing. Maybe you want to convert the data into a data warehouse. Maybe you want to aggregate it some way. Maybe you want to put it in machine learning.
Gotcha. So instead of, if I hear you correctly, instead of me standing there at the end of the track waiting for a new car to show up, you're going to notify me this new car full of data has just shown up for you.
Exactly.
Nice. That's a lot better to me in this day in age of consumption, to be notified that there is new data rather than me polling it over and over and over and over and over, or working with stale data because I reload once a day and I miss all of the stuff.
Absolutely.
So that would be interesting. That's a cool thing. And you mentioned transformations. So I'm guessing from an IT standpoint, Stitch is moving the data and to some target, and that would be what we would consider an operational data store, right? It is operational with raw data. So I'm looking at raw, whatever that app is. Now, if that app, like those analytics reports, was already ready, that's fully analytical ready, right?
Right.
And then if I need to do transformations, like unwrap the boxes, take them off the pallets, I mean, add fields or change field names for data warehouses, that's all going to be done by something else. Qlik Cloud data integration, for example, could consume those post webhooks, and as the data is changing, continue to move it through and do transformations as well. And there's an awful lot of other transformational software that could consume those webhooks, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
It's very flexible.
Cool. So now the data is moving from any one of my sources to a target. It's operational at the point that it's dropped. We've notified something. What else can you tell me about this cool stuff?
Quite a few things, actually. So Stitch also has a very good documentation area. So we did talk about security. If you had any questions about any security policies or any certifications Stitch had, you can come right in.
That PII stored by Stitch is pretty important.
It is very much. We do actually support HIPAA compliance, for example. And this tells you all the things you need to do to understand how that HIPAA data is transferred and how you would need to configure your solution to handle that type of option. So that's all covered in this area. And we do have a lot of clients that have questions about security. How are you storing your data? What are your retentions? Everything like that is all right here for you.
Very cool. Very cool. Because we did kind of skip through that. Like, hey, look how easy this is. People are going to have real concerns, right?
Right.
So that is nice that it's all right there. You've got FedRAMP, you've got GDPR,
Yep.
HIPAA. I don't know how you knew to focus on HIPAA because my healthcare background or something. You probably been looking at my profile out there. So cool. So you've got it all documented right there for people who are curious and interested.
Absolutely. And we also support a number of other options that might be of interest to people. So let's say, for example, we have a customer that or a client that wants to use Stitch, but it only covers 90% of their sources or pardon me, their sources or integrations that they want to collect from. We have a couple ways of being able to extend Stitch to be able to do that, depending on your requirements. One would be a import API. So you could programmatically, whether you use Python or some other technology, be able to make a connection via that import API, define your table structure, and be able to move that 10% of data that you might need via Stitch, and be able to pretty much automate that pipeline. Now, obviously, programmatic it does offer a little bit more work, but that's an option that you have available to you. We also have a listener webhook. So if you wanted to send data via JSON to Stitch, we could actually grab that payload, process it, and then land it into your destination as well. So just a couple different ways of getting data in there that might not be a source that you have. You can also suggest a source if that's something you would like. We also have some other cool capabilities that might interest you. I did mention we did have some special use cases where customers might need to make an exception to get on-prem data. Maybe that's they're doing a web migration or something else. Maybe they have extra security due to the type of industry that they're in, and they need to make sure that the data is really over a secured pipeline. We have some advanced capabilities or connection capabilities within Stitch that would allow you to be able to harden your connection and that pipeline to make it a little stronger depending on what you might need. So we've got what's called advanced connectivity, and that includes things like AWS internal link, which can go from our AWS region to your AWS region. We have VPN. We have reverse SSH. Rather than you hosting the SSH box, we'll do it for you, and you can harden your data connections all that way without having to do all that work yourself as well.
Nice. Awesome sauce. And how about the monitoring there?
That's also really cool. So we want to be very transparent of the amount of rows that you use on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. So the goal here in the integrations tab is to give you that transparency into the row usage over day. So you can highlight over what source. It gives you an idea of the top versus the lowest. So you can outline that in the bar chart. If you wanted to get into more details, for example, let me click into this integration that we constantly have going. This will give you more information on when the last sync was, how many rows were done by table. You can even select it by table if you want to get more granular. So we can do customer invoice, how much data was moved. If you wanted to go back, for example, and add additional tables, you could come under this screen and click on that and add more tables as you do. We also give you more detailed logging information for monitoring. This will give you all the tables that were synced. This will give you basically all the information of what got synced, what errors happened, anything like that. So you can download or copy these logs if you need to and get them in, a Datadog or some other system for analysis.
Okay, now hang on. With those logs, you mentioned an API. Is there an API to pull the logs?
Yes, you can actually do that via our Connect API. So we actually have another API that's more of an orchestration API that allows you to do almost everything that you can in the UI, meaning that if you wanted to,
you'd be able to get there. So for people who do like tracking their logs and some log tracking things, or if they wanted to read that data,
yep,
they
could do it that way.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean that That's a DevOps solution right there.
It is. And we also do support custom emails. So if you wanted to send like errors or notifications to a DevOps solution that's monitoring, you could do that too. So you also have that capability on one of our paid
Very
subscriptions.
cool. Very cool. All right. Blow
And
my mind with something else, man.
cool. Well, let's look at a couple other use cases. We did talk about integration beyond Stitch.
Okay.
So I'm kind of thinking that maybe we can showcase how you can extend functionality, not only with Stitch, but with other solutions and get, some really great integration.
Okay. Yeah.
So the idea here is we're replicating sporting equipment from a Postgres database in the cloud
Okay.
on AWS. So it's an RDS database.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're using an S3 bucket as a source and we're landing the data as a flat file. So this makes all that data available in a very read-friendly way. Well, we also happen to belong to Qlik, which has some great products for being able to load that data in and really easily being able to build a dashboard or, some sort of report on top of that.
That's true, man. That's my jam. That's my jam.
So what we have here, if we go into Qlik Cloud, we have a dashboard that's basically scanning all those flat files, looking for the latest record, and then reporting based off that. So if I click into this dashboard, and again, it's just mock sporting equipment information, you're going to see a lot of analytics that are coming across. So this is going to show you the map and where all the data lands from a city or standpoint. It's going to give you the total invoice amounts that you have. It's going to give you the account. It's going to give you all the density. It's going to give you a pivot chart. And from here, you're able to click into this and really get an idea of how much and where your sporting a good data is being sold the most. Meaning, where's, if I wanted to see how much data was being moved in Canada, for example, I could click there and it would tell you, here's your more popular products in that particular country. So you've got all this analytics. It's all being ran into an S3 bucket and there's no data warehouse on top of it. So that's one potential use case that might be very interesting to people who own Qlik already and want to, leverage the value of Stitch.
Yep. Very cool. So, without mentioning any specific customers, what was one of the coolest integrations you ever helped a customer with or something as a solution engineer?
With Stitch specifically, we actually had a couple commercial customers that were able to take the whole product and not necessarily white label it, but definitely use it as part of their offering. So one of the companies was a kind of a newly funded CRM company that wanted to, as they put it, take down Salesforce. And they needed a way to get data from other sources as part of their CRM solution so they can report off of that for their customers. Well, we were able to use Stitch as a commercial option where each one of their customers would have a sub account. So they'd have their own tenant behind the scenes. So their data and all their connection or connectivity information is sandboxed with each one of those sub accounts. And they can orchestrate that all via that Connect API that we were just talking about. So they're literally able to add value, not have to build out all these integrations and build it right into their product within minutes.
And so it was actually, I mean, that's a really interesting use case because we talked about that a lot with other systems, that they offer reporting inside of the tool, but it's missing a crud ton of other data. From the organization. You're getting a character of a story. You're not getting the whole chapter or the whole book. That's an interesting use case. So they thought of that, like, hey, we know we don't have all your data. All your data is in other systems, and we want to give you the easy way to be able to get all of that together to report on that whole story. That is interesting, man. I like that.
Correct. And also do it in a way that they can scale with new customers. Which is very easy from that use case.
And that is nice. The thing about the consumption that's nice for me is you're paying as you grow.
Yep, absolutely.
So if you're itty bitty startup and you don't want to have to pay a giant amount of money like a bigger customer would, you're paying as you're growing. That means you're successful.
Yep.
and then you're paying as you grow for your success, which is an okay thing to be paying for, right? I'd rather pay and have the tool help make me successful. So yeah, that's cool. That would be a great fit, especially for startups and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also allows you to even allocate labor dollars to where you want it. You again, if you're a small shop, you're paying maybe a data analyst to
Right.
create analytics and help the company make smarter decisions. In this use case, you are absolutely able to do that. You can let them just stand up the integration, and then
Yeah.
they can work on what's most important to the company.
Right. Yeah. And that honestly, I mean, I'm pleading like I've never seen Stitch. But in a full disclaimer, I did use Stitch. One of those integrations you saw there was from me, a Jira to Snowflake. And
Yep.
it literally took me less than 5 minutes to get the thing going. That was one that I had done. It literally took me less than 5 minutes to connect to Jira, and get going. Right. The hardest part about some of the integrations I looked at was where do I go to my profile to find my API key?
Yep.
That's the hardest part of doing that. So
And
yeah,
we
it
have all
really
that
would
documented
fit.
on how and where to go to. So we
So,
try to
so
make it.
your documentation for those sources would actually show you that.
Yep, it would.
The Qlik ain't reading documentation. I'm like,
That's right.
I'm walking through the UI, so it was really kind of cool. So, man, that all seems neat. Can you go back to where you showed that they could get a free trial?
Yep. So you just
I
come
mean,
over.
I'm lucky, right? We have a Qlik Stitch account that I just needed to get added to. So they just go to www.stitchdata.com.
Correct. And then they
That
click on try for free.
that seems way too easy for me. Put their user ID in there, they're up and running. They can choose what region to use.
Yep. I would preface that make sure you are very clear on which region you want, because once you select it, there's no going back.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that dude, it's one of the other problems besides moving trains full of data all over the place.
Yep.
For me, as the Qlik Dork, is trying to help customers understand what Qlik is, because the visualizations you showed, that's what most people think of when they hear the word Qlik. They think
Yeah.
of visualization, and we are just so much more, right? We're very honored to have acquired talent, merging with them, and having Stitch as offerings for that full pipeline, right? You cannot get that screen full of pretty visuals unless you have fresh data. You build out that screen, but if you're reading from a warehouse that's a month old or a week old, nobody's making decisions from those screens anyway.
Right.
But by being able to have that data moving across, even if it's near real time, it's 5 minutes for a database, or 30 minutes. You're always really going to batch things together anyway, for things that are application based, because that application could have 50 tables you're bringing across, right? So bringing data from one table, like sales, across and starting to work with it, you may not have that referential integrity for the customer added, right? And so having a batch for application related things absolutely it makes sense anyway. I mean, that's what folks are going to do. So Rob, give me, what's one last thing you'd like to share before we end this?
I'd also like to mention that as you add new sources, let's say you've added, Salesforce today, but you are eventually going to need marketing analytics like Google
Yep.
Analytics or Shopify or whatever. As you scale or add new sources or integrations, we also give you a 7-day grace period on getting your historical sync data in place. So let's say you had a bunch of records going back 2 years, and you need to get that into your target data warehouse for whatever reason.
Okay.
Stitch will give you a week before we actually start billing you on row usage. So you can get a lot of value, get all the data you need. And then we'll start billing you on the actual monthly updates you do, not necessarily the
What?
historical.
Wait a second. So they can do their full loads for free, and then they're billed for the change data capture stuff, basically.
Yep, right after that 7-day grace period, as long as all the historic data is there within that point, you won't be charged on it.
Wow. So so the life of their account, they sign up, they start doing 3 things, they pay, they're growing, they add a 4th a month from now. Every time they add a new source connector,
Yep.
they've got 7 days.
Yep, we give you a full week before you need to start paying on that.
I like it. I like it because that's where the volume of data is, right?
It really is.
They could bring over 100 million records, and there could be 50 changing in a day. In
Yep,
some
absolutely.
right? So they'd be paying for the 50, not the 3 million. So that's cool.
Exactly, and that's really what they want to pay on the model is the movement of the CDC or the replication data, not the historical.
I didn't know that, man. That's fantastic. Well, Robert, I got to tell you, you definitely had me in stitches today. So, and Hugo, that was for you, man. That's my boss gave me that title. So I said you were a fun guy to talk to. I've been chatting with you. We've had one other conversation. I appreciate your taking your time, Robert, to helping me understand the product more. Obviously, I have access to some slideware, but really understanding this level is fantastic for me as well as anybody who's out there watching. So,
sure,
dude, I appreciate you taking your time. I know you've got a million other things to do. If you're out there watching, www.stitchdata.com. I mean, it cannot get any easier than that. It's free to get going. You've got a couple weeks to play with it. Any users and passwords are all secured. So you can move the data to give it a trial. I mean, kick the tires on that thing. It's easy breezy. And so, yeah, I would get out there and get going. I sure hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great day.